LinkedIn presents.
Does shame have too strong a hold on your life and work? I'm Aarons-Mele, and this is The Anxious Achiever, the show that looks at the intersection of mental health and work and asks, how can we do both better?
Hi, I'm Kwame Christian, CEO of the American Negotiation Institute, and I have a quick question for you. When was the last time you had a difficult conversation? These conversations happen all the time, and that's exactly why you should listen to Negotiate Anything, the #1 negotiation podcast in the world. We produce episodes every single day to help you lead, persuade, and resolve conflicts both at work and at home. So level up your negotiation skills by making Negotiate Anything part of your daily routine.
Shame impacts our bodies and our minds. When I even hear the word in my head, I can feel a visceral feeling, the blood rushing, my stomach dropping. I guess there's a purpose to shame. Maybe it makes sense and it helps society function, right? Like keep behavior in line and everyone working together. But in some ways, it seems kind of counter-evolutionary. The idea that we can hold on and be limited by our past traumas and incidents and worries so that it continues to impede on our lives in the present. I'm obsessed with shame. You've heard me ask all kinds of guests about it already on the show. But today, I want to go to an expert on the matter to better understand where shame comes from, how we can tackle it and dismantle it, and how we can literally unshame ourselves. David Bedrick is a self-described psychological activist, and he wants us all to learn to release shame from our bodies and minds to live a better life. And that, of course, means we live better work lives. First, I would love you to define shame. What is it?
Shame is an internalized witness of our experience. When we have an experience, feelings or relational dynamics, we look at it through a lens. And this particular lens has two conclusions. What's wrong with you? That's how I'm looking at your feelings. And your experience or you don't matter.
So is the lens of shame saying, I don't matter and there's a lot of things wrong with me? Is it telling me that? Is it interpreting the world for me?
Yes, it's interpreting the world for you. Some people think that shame is a feeling and that shame produces feelings, but many people have lots of shame and no obvious feelings at all. For example, you could have enormous amount of body shame and then do a lot of things to make your body different and think, I just feel good, even though there was a lens looking at you saying you're not meeting a cultural standard of beauty, and that's because, etc., and injuring you. So many people feel better about themselves because shame gets them to twist themselves into shapes. There's damage underneath, though.
You've written that shame is a violence.
Shame is a very specific and special kind of violence. Let's think about abuse as one form of violence, right? Somebody hits somebody else and the person they're hitting can't sufficiently defend themselves. You could say, David, you're an idiot. I can say, you're an idiot. That might not be abuse. It might be disgusting, assaultive, obnoxious, hurtful. But if I say, you're an idiot, right? What you do with that, your shame lens interprets that is, I'm really screwing this up. Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me? He must be really seeing into me. I might do this different next time. I should analyze myself and figure out why I act this way. That's not just you being hurt or angry with me. David, that's disgusting, or hey, that hurts. That's an interpretation of that hurt. Mm-hmm. So the hurt is one violence, right? And I'm not saying this to you. You're an idiot, right? So that's a violence, or the punch or a smack, that's an assault. How that gets interpreted by you, that violence comes from how that violence was witnessed. So if you live in a experience, a shame experience inside of my feelings don't really matter. Then somebody assaults you and you think, I shouldn't be upset. That don't really matter. That's the second kind of violence. So you walk away with the hit, and then you walk away with this inner experience that tries to figure out what's wrong with you, that keeps you up at night, that sends you for healing, I'm saying quote unquote, to fix yourself. And you may never tell the person, somebody treated me really badly today and hurt like hell. You may never say that if there's a lot of shame. You may just say, why am I such a screw up?
The witness is a powerful figure in your work.
Yeah.
What is a witness in the context of shame?
Let me give 2 examples. One, let me give my own personal story, as it were, a piece of my personal story. So I grew up in a violent home with a father who used fists and belts to express his rage, who takes it out on his wife and children. That's a violence. That's an abuse. That's a perpetrator. That's an abuser. That's an assault. All those words, yes. Now, in my family, I had a mother who was so disempowered that she dealt with that by saying, that didn't happen. David, you're getting so upset. Why would you ever think that could happen to you? Your father would never do that. You hear how she's interpreting the experience for me. She's a witness. Now, if I'm vulnerable, I was as a child, I may still be in certain ways. I'm 69 years old. There's ways in which I'm vulnerable. That's not a bad thing. That's a human thing. If I'm vulnerable, then I walk away from that violence of my father thinking, did it really happen? Maybe it wasn't that bad. I really do get very upset about things. Why do I get so upset? And then listen to this interesting detail. Then I have stomach aches a lot around that environment. I got lots of stomach aches. They took me to doctors. They never found anything, meaning they couldn't find a medical reason for my stomach aches. So my mother's a witness, interpreting my experience. I'm vulnerable, it goes in. And now something later in life, someone hurts me. And I think, oh, what's wrong with me? Gosh, did it really happen? Laura, did you think that was a bad thing? I question my experience. I'm doing a self-analysis. It's a kind of an annihilation, right?
Stop overreacting, David.
Yeah, stop overreacting. You're too sensitive, some people are told. You're too loud. If you're a woman, you're a bee. If you, whatever. There's all kinds of interpretations that look like denial and gaslighting of the person. Now that you walk around with that thing, that lens now stays. So it witnesses that experience and it becomes my dominant experience. And if I go to therapy later on in life, there's a good chance I tell the therapist, I don't know. I'm never sure. I have a lot of self-doubt. I'm overly sensitive. I get triggered a lot. Can you help me? Notice there's no story. There's no father. There's no abuse. There's no violence. There's only my mother's interpretation of me. And now I want to get fixed. Now think about the stomach. Now I have stomach aches. Then I go to a doctor. I'm not saying that the doctor's a bad person, woman, man, with a non-bad person, but they say, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. They're not consciously trying to say that didn't happen. They don't even know that about that event. But my stomach is saying, rah, ouch, acid, hold it in, cramps, diarrhea, let it out. My stomach is having a lot of information in it. And when my stomach goes to the doctor, so to speak, and says, I have all this hell, I'm freaking out, I got cramps because I don't know what to do with all this energy. My stomach is delivering the message the best way it knows how, the best way I know how. And the doctor says, nothing wrong with you. The doctor becomes inadvertently a witness. I'm not blaming them. And now I have a problem and I can't fix it. And I don't know, where's the story about my environment? Nobody asks about that. How come? This is the deep question. How come people don't say, can't find biological things? I wonder why this young kid is getting stomach aches all the time.
You had the most, I guess to me, at this point in my life, a very resonant story in your book of a woman who was facing chronic illness. And she was so exhausted. The illness was exhausting her, but what was really exhausting her was her sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I got the sense reading it, that the chronic illness is the responsibility. The weight, how is that connected to her shame?
Yeah.
In your model?
It's connected to shame because what she's doing with the illness is thinking, I have something wrong. I got an illness. I have symptoms. I need a healer for my symptoms. Who can help make these symptoms go away? Well, that would be great, right, by the way. If anybody's listening, they think, is it bad to make your symptoms go away? No. If you can get relief from suffering, take the relief. But the chronic illness is also information, like my stomach, and a messenger of her story, of her interest, and the kind of woman she is. And all of that then is being witnessed as something to make go away. So the psychology of that is the information says, you go away. I don't want to hear, or I don't want to hear about your interests. I don't want to hear the kind of person you are. I don't want to hear what it's like to be a single mother who's not supported in a culture. I don't want to hear about what it's like to be a woman of color, single mother, or whatever. I don't want to hear all those details. It's not saying that directly. And that your symptoms are a cultural issue or a response to that, or maybe a part of sexism in motherhood. I don't want to know any of those things. I have no interest in any of those things. Make all that go away. And now I'm putting quotes. You and your story and your social identity don't really matter. You have a problem, and if we can quiet that problem, you won't be a problem for the rest of us. That's shame's interpretation of the chronic symptom.
What's the connection to her sense? I just keep thinking of that word that she's talking about, is that she has so much responsibility.
One part of her has learned to be a responsible person. That's good. We should all be somewhat responsible at a certain level, right? But you can be, can we use the word over-responsible? I'm an over-responsible kind of person. I'm a type A. I try to prepare and over-prepare, and I get an A, and I didn't get every question right? So, and if my wife is a little bit upset or something, I want to make it better, etc. So I'm going to try to over-care, right? Overachieve, right? Overdo those things. By over, I mean I'm bypassing my own rhythm, my own wellness, my health, what's right for me. I have to bypass that for me to be the person that I'm trying to be. Why would I be those things? Because I got a lot of messages about, for me, what it's like to be a man, what you should be as a husband, what you should, right, etc. And it's good, and don't show your feelings, and men should be tough. So we give a lot of reasons to override our experiences and our feelings. Now I start to suffer because let's say I don't sleep enough. By the way, I don't. But now let's say my body's getting tired, or I'm getting a flu, or I'm getting regular colds, or whatever, or my digestive system is not operating as well because I'm really exhausted. Now I look at those things as a problem to go away. I don't think, oh, this difficulty that tires me is in a direct relationship to the overachiever. The overachiever and over-responsible person is trying to do a lot. My body is saying less. One part says more, right? Crack the whip, tree, go. Another part goes less. That's a dialogue. That's a dance. But I need to make sure they get into dialogue. So here's an interesting perspective shift now. If you understand shame, without a shame lens, you think my symptoms of tiredness are part of an illness. They are. Let's call it a chronic illness, inflammatory illness, an immune illness. I'm going to flip that in the other way around. From the perspective of the tiredness, the over-responsibility is an illness. I'm not wrong. I'm just trying to tell you this is not working for me. Well, you're sick. No, I'm not sick. You're creating an abusive environment for me to live in. I was living in a sick, you could call it, a dysfunctional family system. Is David sick? Yes, he's got stomach aches. He needs help. Or is the family system sick? Is the tiredness the illness? Or is the lifestyle that passes over what's right for the person's well-being and their gifts sick?
So last definition, which is what is unshaming?
Unshaming is a different kind of a witness. The shaming witness denies, dismisses, and gaslights your experience. What's wrong with you? That's happening because you did bad things, or it didn't happen at all, or it didn't happen the way you think. Then shame enters the system. An unshaming witness is a way of witnessing a person's experience as worthy to be seen for what it is, believed as if there's an intelligence built into it, and unfolded, meaning I want to know more about that. I'm not trying to make you go away. Dear stomach ache, please come out even more. Bellyache a lot, David, so I can actually hear you. Show me what it's like to be really, really exhausted. I wouldn't be able to get off the ground. Lay on the ground and show me, right? So shame denies and dismisses that. Get over that. Make that go away. It's a pathology of an illness. Unshame says it's not a pathology. It's a meaningful communication of your system. It's the medicine for your life, not a symptom at all. That's what unshaming does.
So to prepare, I had a tantrum about a half an hour ago because I was trying to listen. And I'm so tired and my body aches. And I had to pick up my mother because I take care of my mother. And I didn't want to pick up my mother. And I felt angry. And I just was sitting there and I just got up and I tried to have a tantrum. I tried to scream and yell and just
I love it.
feel these feelings that I think are so resonant for the achievers listening out there of like,
Yes.
you need push through, go pick up your mother, earn a living, show up for this meeting. And then your body hurts and is tired and you don't listen to that. You just say, grow up, push through.
Yeah.
So I tried to indulge and have a temper tantrum a half an hour ago.
Good work so far. Great.
And it felt weird and the dog looked at me. And then I just lay on the bed and I felt really tired.
Nice. Nice.
So-
Nice. That's a good process. Yeah. So in that process, if I'm in an unshaming view, I think everything you're doing has an intel. It's not right, meaning you should go beat up people, but it's right, meaning there's a natural flow. First, a part of you goes rah, grr, grr, anger, tantrums. You could call that, I'm going to call that loosely a protest.
Yeah.
Right? It's a protest. I don't like it. And that's what I mean by protest. And then after the protest, you rest. Can't you just go right to rest? No, because your system didn't. And it needs a little bit of both. It needs a little bit of that protest energy throughout your day so that when something comes in, that's a little bit past that boundary of wellness, let's call it, then you should have a little protest song going on inside. You're a little mini fit. A mini fit is like, oh, I wish I could make it more, but I can't. That's a little mini. Can you follow? I'm protesting. I'm not going along with the flow. It doesn't look like a big tantrum, but it's a little dose of tantrum that I'm going to need in different moments. Sometimes bigger moments. If you have to take care of somebody that you're overgiving for, you can't quite do, then you need a bigger protest. The protest doesn't have to be with the mother in this story. It could be. I don't know about the relationship, but you have to know something in me can't say yes to the amount I'm saying yes to. I have to know that and reckon with that. And then what am I going to do with that? I can't only push over that because it will cause difficulties. If a person's body sensitive, they'll have symptoms, physical. They'll somatize and have illnesses. The illness can take you out of things.
I had a congressman on my show recently, and he has chronic pain and anxiety, and he would describe sitting in endless committee meetings just in so much pain. And I said, looking around the room of all these very powerful people, how many of them would you guess were in chronic pain? And he said, probably most of them.
Yeah. It's painful.
Is that the protest? Is the pain the protest? Or is the pain what happens when we don't have the little protest happening inside, which is saying this boundary's crossed. I gotta do something different.
I don't know in that story because I don't have enough information, but the unshaming witness would say, if that group was open, maybe not be open to it
In the Congress?
this way, right? especially in these 2 minutes, I have to find a way to operate in that system, right? That's not going to be the same as a therapeutic couch, so to speak.
Right.
But if they were free, I would say, how many people feel some amount of pain? And some of the people who are in pain won't say yes. One, because they won't disclose, but because they don't yet think the pain they're in is worthy of speaking about. They're like, yeah, I always got a headache, or I always got this headache. And therefore I'm not in pain. And then I would say, how about if anybody is in a tiny little bit of pain? And then I would say, how about if anybody might be kind of in pain, but it's not really that important? And then most people are going to raise their hand. And the reason why I'm asking that is because I'm trying to say, you don't have to put that away, suppress that, think you should get over that. Otherwise it lives in shame's land. Let's everybody come out. And then I would say to everybody, feel the pain in your body. Again, this in a more mainstream organizational setting, it wouldn't work. There are ways of doing it, but it wouldn't be this way. And then I would say, everyone feel that. make a sound of the pain. No words. Oh. Because the pain belongs to the group, and it probably belongs to the task and the environment that they're wrestling with. There's probably a lot of painful issues, and people aren't having time to actually even say, this is painful to deal with. And in that pain might be directions for answers to problems that you can't logically answer. You look at that, you look at war zones and things like that. People try to come up with answers that are important. Let's stop the violence. I don't want kids being killed and having traumas for generations, etc. But if we leave out the feelings are more, the solutions are more logically based. This has to happen. This person is right. This person is wrong. This is the history. Those are super important. We need to understand those backgrounds and those histories of complicated war zones, violence zones, genocidal zones. But if we leave the feelings out, the solutions will never hold, because the feelings have their own direction. Just hearing the feelings, just crying together, and then saying, what do we do as weepers, as criers? New solutions will come to people if the feeling level comes in. So pain is a feeling level and a body level. It embodies the Senate body, Congress body. Mm-hmm.
But mostly at work, we intentionally leave the feelings out.
Yeah. You have to mediate the knowledge that you have inside always with the audience that you're talking to. By the way, I did organizational work for 12 years. That was my main work. So in those environments, I wouldn't do that. But I might say something like, sometimes work can be painful. Write down 3 moments that you thought were difficult, hurtful, or painful in your way. Take one of them and describe the event. Well, I was doing this and I went for a performance review and my boss said, you're doing great, you're doing great, you're doing great. And then ended with this little thing that felt like a criticism to me. Great. Then let's sit together. You tell your story. I tell my story about that. And we're sharing pain. That's the common denominator is it's a painful story. But I'm not telling you I got stomach aches. I feel hurt. I'm really angry. I'm sharing the story. Stories are okay to be shared. And that information would be huge for that organization. Because if you got 10 of those, you would find them already grouping into clusters. It's not 10 separate stories. It's going to be 2 or 3 kinds of stories. If you got 20 of them, it would be 4 or 5. If you got 60 of them, it'd be up to 6 or 7 stories only. And those clusters would be some of the most important pain points, change points for that organization, just out of doing that.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Jessie Hempel, host of the Hello Monday podcast. In my 20s, I knew what career success looked like. In midlife, it's not that simple. Work is changing, we're changing, and there's no guidebook for how to make sense of it. So come figure it out with me on the Hello Monday podcast. I've been a journalist for 2 decades, writing cover stories for Business Week, Fortune, and Wired. And now, every Monday, I bring you conversations with people who are thinking deeply about work and where it fits into our lives. Like Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella on growth mindsets.
The learn-it-all does better than the know-it-all.
Or NYU professor Scott Galloway on choosing a career.
I think the worst advice you can give a kid is follow your passion.
Or MacArthur Genius winner Angela Duckworth on talent versus grit.
Your long-term effort and your long-term commitment are surprisingly important.
Each episode delivers pragmatic advice for right now. Listen to Hello Monday with me, Jessie Hempel, on the LinkedIn Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Of course, shame is so present at work. I was thinking about our conversation because a lot of people I know are getting laid off right now. I spoke with a friend yesterday whose business had failed. She has to shut her business down. Mm-hmm. There's so much shame imbued in the experience of being told you're not needed, in the experience of shutting down your business. So how do we press forward feeling these things, feeling this shame if we're not able to see it and talk about it?
Yeah. If you don't know it exists, then shame will rule. I'll just feel not just like I lost my job, but that I am a failure, right? I'm a failure. I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to tell my partner. I don't want to tell my friends. If they found out, they would think certain things. So I won't be thinking that's because I'm feeling ashamed. I won't be thinking that's because people are critical of me. I'll just be believing that people looking at me in a diminishing way is proper given what happened for me. You should treat me badly because somebody fired me. My psyche has learned to believe that. Why? Earlier experiences, I must deserve things. Why does this happen? What's wrong with me? Maybe I did something wrong. Most people live in that invisible prison of going through that. It's a very painful thing. But some of the ways of changing that, it has to be changed at levels. One level is at the culture at large. We need to be listening to people who lose their jobs, listening to people with chronic illnesses who can't be as productive as a mainstream sense of, and not just trying to treat them and heal them, but asking them about our systems. Reflect, dear chronic sufferers, tell us about how our systems don't serve you and probably everybody who doesn't know it yet. So the culture needs to wake up. That happens over time. It is happening, but it's a longer stretch. It's not within a day or weeks. We need activists who start to speak up about chronic illness. That starts to happen. Or speak up about Me Too and abuse. Or speak up about ADHD or autism. We need people to start, or being trans. We need people to start speaking up so the culture starts waking up to the fact that there's a bias and hurt that we're not seeing. Then relationships. If you are my friend, then I want to know that you're at least one person in my life who I can tell things, and you're not going to dismiss my feelings and make me feel bad about that. I need you can call it a safe place where that person's not going to lay something on me. Well, maybe you did this. Could you have done something different at that job?
Right. Or you're the cause of getting laid off. Or you talked in your book about a man who had a lot of money anxiety. You know, he felt that his inability to earn as much money as he felt that he should he was extremely ashamed of that. It was a signal of his larger failure as a man. I think that's very resonant to a lot of people.
Huge among, again, some things have their gender, style, or experiences. But for many men to talk about what it's like to feel the pressure to make money. Again, I'm not saying women don't have their own pressures. It's a conditioned thing. I'm a man. I'm macho. I'll take care of my kids. That's my job. Take care of my family. I try to get more awake about that over years, but I still have some of it. I still have to tell my wife at times, I'm working too hard because I think I have to provide something. She's not asking me for it, right? It's in my male ego, you could call that. I feel better about myself as a man when I'm doing certain things, even if it's beyond the point of hurting me. So that happens. But if you ask men together to talk about money, what it's like to have a certain amount, why we don't share specifics with each other. I did well last year. How come you didn't say 100,000, 50,000, or 2 million? Why all the invisibility about all that? If you out that stuff, let's talk about the details. I don't want to tell you how much I actually make. Let's talk. Don't tell us. Let's talk about why we don't talk about money in details. You'll find all kinds of difficulties, competitions, jealousies, and pain that are all suppressed. They still affect our relationships. I'm still competing with you and knocking you down, but we don't know what's going on directly. So shame wraps itself around that whole environment, doesn't let us talk about what's really happening. Then we just get into funky relationships and don't understand why.
Okay, so there's 3 things I want to do, David. The first is I really want to talk about externalizing. I want to actually do an exercise with you, if you'd be willing to externalize the inner critic, because I think that is really powerful. I wanted to just first ask you a question, which I think is really relevant. And you have a couple of examples in your book. You know, we talk about the desire to be an unshaming witness. And I think when you said before, gosh, I have done this to my husband, I felt like I needed to apologize to him reading your book, where he's had a financial or a professional hurdle and I have been that shamer. Well, why didn't you do this? Or you're so bad with this? Or why? How can we as colleagues, as allies, as friends, as bosses, really show up for people when they might be feeling shame in a way that respects boundaries, but isn't unshaming, right? Because I would assume that we interacting with each other, we pile on shame without even noticing.
Yeah, it's built into the culture. It's like any social oppression. Like I'm a more or less white dude, right? And that means that People may not agree with me that the stuff of sexism, racism are in my bones, right? I'm not agreeing with it. I'm not thinking that's good. I'm not thinking I shouldn't work on that, which I have, and I write about that for decades. But these things, you don't just kind of go, I don't want to be that way anymore, right? It's like, they're just like shame is built into the culture. The most essence level, unshaming intention and question to meet another person with is, what's it like to be you? So if you say, I lost my job, what's it like for you losing your job? You say, I got a headache. What's it like? You can use the question different words. What's your headache like? What's it like to have a headache for you? Right? I have stomach acid. What's your stomach acid like? Mine burns in the esophagus. How's yours? Does it bring up acid into your, does it create cramps? Do you need to use pills? An inquiry as to what a person experiences like and what it's like for them is so huge, because it undoes shame. It says, I matter. Otherwise, why would you ask me? And you want to know about my experience. We're not trying to get rid of my experience. You actually want to know about my experience. Or a person who drinks alcohol. I do drink too much last night. What was it like when you had your third glass of wine? Oh, I'm an idiot. No. I'm not asking about your criticism. What was it like? Did you feel relaxed? Did you have a headache? Did you flirt more? Did you get quiet? What happens for you? What's it like for you? That is a door open that's so obvious to me, because I think this way and I practice for over 3 decades. It's so missing. Like if you came to me and said, I smoke cigarettes, how do I stop? I would think, what's it like to smoke cigarettes? Almost nobody or program is going to ask you that.
No.
Cigarettes are bad. Big surprise, right? I didn't know that, right?
Don't do it.
You shouldn't do it. Okay, we know that. How? Well, here's the method to stop it. But the question that's always missing is, what's it like? Because if you're smoking a cigarette, or any of these examples, your smoking has intelligence, not the intelligence of you should smoke and not worry about your lungs. The intelligence of, I'm looking for something in that cigarette. What I'm hungry for, my editor said, the hunger behind the hunger. She said, what I'm actually trying to access in that cigarette, however bad that is and however unwell it does, there is intelligence. And if you say, don't do it, the intelligence in me will probably override any interventions I make and go right back to the pattern, because the pattern has something in it. What does it have in it? What's it like to be you? It has you in it.
In my corner of LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who are trying to console each other around what I call professional heartbreak. I got laid off and people are saying I should just get over it. It's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so personal.
Yeah.
I didn't get what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I know I need to just move on, but I can't,
Yeah. Difficult. Like I said, there's a cultural level, a relational level, and then the inner level. The cultural level is we need to wake up. If things are happening in the culture, a pandemic, then we need to be talking about it in the public, and otherwise the relational. But then the inner level. The inner level, meaning the person with themselves, the same question. What's it like to get laid off? Well, I need to get a job and I was stressed. I know that, but slow down. Somebody just told you you lost the job. What happens for you? What happens for you? Before we go on to the solutions and what to do, I don't know. I'm just confused. Let's be confused for a little bit together. That little tiny bit says to the psyche, you matter, and whatever you're experiencing is meaningful. If you did that in a group of 3 or 7 or 10 in a group, amazing things would happen just with going into that. Let's talk about what it's like. That's why people make solidarity, right? That's why people go online and find groups for their thing. I need solidarity, people who have that kind of experience. And then in relationships, huge. So the next level of what's it like to be you, right? Whether it's, let's say with the losing the job, getting laid off, losing the job, it's an interesting thing. Where'd it go? Where'd you put it?
Yeah, right.
It's a strange language, isn't it? Like getting laid off. Somebody did something. I'm not saying they tried to hurt me. Somebody did something that affected my life. So even the losing the job, I just hear those words. It's missing something. It's missing story. In that experience, so I say, what's it like to lose your job? And then people will say this and that, and it's difficult. Talk about some of those difficulties for you. But most of us don't know how to talk about our deeper experience. What I mean by experience is what it's like to be me inside me. That means either self-talk that's happening around it or feelings that live in my body. Those are the two ways we access our experience, not our ideas, but our experience. Well, what happens when I lose my job? I think I'm an idiot. I think I'm a failure. I think I'm no good. That means I had inside my head, I call that a critic, a voice that says you're a no good person as a male, as a woman, as a mother, whatever it's going to be. So that we have to know, oh, that's part of your experience. Or the feelings that I have. And feelings live in the body. And very rarely does a person get asked, what's that feeling like in your body? I'm really down. What's it like to be down in your body? What are you talking about? Take a moment and feel where the downness is in your body. Is it in your shoulders? Is it in your head that's heavy? Yeah. Is it in your posture that wants to slump? Where is this feeling downness? People can't answer that question. And then let that feeling be there and exaggerate it a little bit. Oh, that alone is so radical. And there's more things you can do, but that is so rarely done. Why is it rarely done? Because people don't grow up with an environment and a family system where where somebody inquires. Somebody acts angry. They say, you're angry. This is what to do about it. But we don't say, what's that anger like? Person says, I have a headache. We don't say, is it pounding? Is it migrainal and making me dizzy? Is it like a pressure? Is it in one spot? Is it like a weight on top of you? And you don't have to analyze those and know what to do about each headache. But if you ask a person, they'll be like, wow, you want to know about my headache? Something in them will not everyone. Some people will just resist because they've been put down so much they don't want to answer the question. But many people will be like, inside, they'll be like, wow, that person wants to know me. That's an unshaming space that you made just in that moment, even if it's 1 minute.
I am connecting to so many painful feelings in my body.
I see you moving your posture.
Oh.
I'm watching. I see you moving your posture. Your left hand moved back behind your neck into your upper shoulders.
Right
and
there.
put it there. So now I'm just thinking that may be too much for, I'm not trying to
go for it. Let's do it.
Make you uncomfortable. But if I had the permission, which I didn't ask for, I'm sorry about that.
You have it. You have it.
Yeah. Then I think, oh, now your left hand is over by your neck and shoulder. That means your hand is going to a place that your body's having feeling experience. And I think your hand must be intelligent because it went there. It knows. So there's the two things we could do. I could say that your hand is by that area, by the neck, shoulder. What's it feel like physically there? Is it sharp? Is it like an ache? Is it like a cramp? What's it like in your neck, shoulder area?
It's a pinched nerve that's been pinched for years that flares up.
Oh, you're smiling when you say that. And that says to me as a witness, that says something part of you has a yes to being asked that question and to saying something, because the energy of you changes. It's as if the body, right? You smile and your eyes change and they squint a little bit more and your hand went back there. So your body is saying through the eyes, through the smile, through the hand, and then you made a sigh. You went, wow, made a sigh. So those are 4 pieces of information that say, yes, thank you for asking about this. I need to know more about this. It's right? All that is a communication. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I'm smiling because a colleague the other day did the same thing. She messaged me after a call and she said, I noticed you were holding your neck. You looked like you were in pain.
Yeah.
What were you feeling? And maybe she read your book.
Mm-hmm.
And and it really it made me cry because it made me feel
touching,
very seen.
Beautiful.
And we don't know each other very well.
So the first thing that comes up is one of the things that's in 2 things that are in the shoulder. One is I'm hurting. I am in some level of pain. And the next thing is it's really touching to be seen for the pain I carry. We haven't done I haven't done a therapeutic session, right? I'm just listening. I'm just witnessing. You don't need psychology to do what I'm doing. You need 0 psychology. All you need is awareness and care. I'm not saying psychology doesn't have something to offer, but right now, all I'm doing is listening to you and believing you that they can. So then if I did nothing else but say, tell me about the pain in your life that you think is unseen in the last couple of years. Because the body's speaking. and I'm listening. And then if we wanted to go even deeper, I would say, how come it's not seen? Why isn't it shared? I'm not saying that doesn't mean you should. What kind of environments do you live in where you can't say, I've been in pain for years. I really would love somebody to give me a moment and just see and hear what it's like for me. Why not do that? Again, that's not a why not, why aren't you doing that? It's a genuine question. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you go to certain places or certain people and say, can I tell you, I've been in a significant pain for a number of years now, and I would just love for somebody to take a moment and just listen and see what it's like for me to have this pain. And you'll say it in your way.
I don't have a good answer for that.
Right. Okay, here's maybe a better question. Who would you never say that to? Who would you never say, I've been in really significant pain for a couple of years, and I really would love to just have a moment and have you just see what it's like. See it for a moment, just witness me, see me, feel me.
There are many people in my life that I wouldn't say that to because I would think that they wouldn't want to hear it.
Yes. Now this belief system, which is, I'm not thinking they would want to hear it, but I'm not disbelieving you at all. But this idea, I don't share certain things about myself, especially my pain, because people don't want to hear it. That way of living will, for most people, if I did what I don't know about you, for most people, if I did what I did with you, I would say, how often do you just think people don't want to hear what's really going on for you and walk through the world? People would say a lot / all the time / almost my whole life. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. That's a shame is opera. That's what shame does. Then we walk around with the assumption, because why? Because there's a witness that you have had earlier or in a culture or in a family that says, I'm not really open to, interested in, or time for that. That's a shaming witness to the pain, and the pain has got to go, okay, I'll put myself away. I'll put my hand on my shoulder in front of people. Maybe people will notice that.
I'll take some more Advil.
Right, take some more Advil. I'll go to the chiropractor. That's good. I mean, I'm not against the Advil or the chiropractor, by the way, but I'm also interested in what the body is saying, and now interested in a world where, and an idea, I can't really bring certain parts of me into the world. I've lived like that. I've lived undercover. I'm going to use the word closeted. I'm not trying to appropriate the word from the queer community, but it's, I'm a closeting part of myself. That's what shame does. And then it doesn't get to live. And then what does it do? It doesn't go away. It causes inner problems, inner criticism. It somatizes and becomes symptoms. It comes bumps in relationships. All of a sudden, someone treats you in a hurtful way and you get really depressed, or you kind of get really angry. And you're like, oh, right. Sorry. You deserved a little dose of that because you touched the spot. But by the way, you got it all. We got it all. So those kind of things happen. That happens in organizations all the time. If a person doesn't feel free to leave a job, especially, or to speak up to a boss, like nobody feels 100% free to, speak up to a boss, let's say, just about. I'm not saying everyone should. Then these things get held down. And then what happens with them? Well, in the work environment, they become morale, work environment feelings, stealing time, stealing stuff, gossip. I'm not saying those things are bad even. I'm trying to say stealing is bad or gossip is bad. I'm just saying the fact. That's what happens in that environment. It becomes a symptom of the organization. Now, some people have physical symptoms, but symptoms in an organization look like gossip, leaving, not doing the job, being passive aggressive, taking it out on people that you have power over, bad morale, lying, deceiving. Let me say, those liars and deceivers are bad people. Yes, but it happens in an organization because of an environment.
Right? Because it's a system. As you said, you would have people each tell their individual story, but it would be the same story.
Yeah, that's right. Power dynamics exist in an organization. There's rank. There's power dynamics. You're my boss, and there's a middle manager, and there's a CEO, and whatever. There's levels. And once power differences are introduced into a system, they're everywhere, right? They're on the streets. So the power differences are inherent to systems. Once you have power differences, you have the possibility that those who have more power will not be able to witness the experiences of people with less power. And the people with less power will have information because they're suffering over it, that the person who has more power won't know. The person with less power is like the body. It's like a symptom. If I'm a teacher, my students know things about how I teach that I don't know. things I need to learn as a teacher. Not necessarily about my content, but how to teach. My students will know that the best. How come I don't know it? Because I am a little bit blind. I'm a normal human being, and people get a little more power, they get a little more blind. That's not evil, that's human nature. But then the checkpoint of that is not for me to make sure I'm awake, it's to have an open relationship with people with less power. It's an analogy. David has the relationship with his body. His body talks to him. He treats it like it's a problem, make it go away. I treat my employees like their problems, make them go away. If I treat my back pain like it's a problem, make it go away, then shame rules and we don't get the information from those employees, from that body, from those relationships.
I think that when you live with chronic pain, it's really confusing. People are giving you all kinds of advice and you have so many ideas and you have to keep showing up and living your life. And you sort of feel like Groundhog Day. That's how it feels. It feels like Groundhog Day to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I'll have a wonderful session with you and then I have to pick up in 3 minutes, do another interview and then go get my kids and do all the things. And tomorrow,
Right.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I do know what you mean. Yeah, the Groundhog Day-ness of it. I do something, but then I got to go on with my life. How do these two get along? How does the fact that my body pain says one thing and this is what I need and this is what my tiredness needs, but I really do have to pick somebody else up.
The responsibility.
I really do have responsibilities. My resolution for that is it's not the eventual answer. It's the path to resolution, because unshaming is a path. That's why I call my book The Unshaming Way. My path, the resolution to that is that's a conversation, a dialogue, a debate. Inside of you, the debate is, I have to go do something. And another thing. Another side says, I'm in pain and I wish somebody would take the time to see me and let me weep a little bit. I'm not saying who should win, what you do. But if you took a little time for the debate itself, that conversation, and what'll happen with that is not necessarily a resolution, but a relationship between those two. And if the relationship deepens, life will get deeper. Then you might go pick somebody else up and tell them you're hurting. Solutions will happen that aren't one or the other. We don't know what your natural solutions are because so much shame exists around symptoms for the two reasons we're saying. One is I feel like a failure and like a bad person because I have them.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that shame. And there's also, I have to treat these symptoms as if there's no intelligence message.
Right. As if they're dumb and they should just go away when they're not.
Go away. We don't want you here. So both of those. So we need unshaming, one to say, help people feel you're not a bad person. You're not a failure, bad person, awful human being because your job went away and someone said, you can't work here anymore or whatever that is. And then the deeper thing is you're a particular kind of person who has a kind of a message, maybe even a gift around sensitivity and pain and being seen. How can you live more of that? So that's the second level, that we're treating this pain as a kind of a leadership, as an intelligence that needs to be brought into the world. Now we're not trying to get rid of you. We're trying to advance your voice that's informed by the experiences you have. I said, I have a father who was violent and a mother who did this. I'm not trying to only make that go away. A lot of that is easier than it was. I'm 69 than it was when I was 30. I still have difficulties, trip over myself, get into messes with my partner that I think, oh my gosh, she's not your mother, David. I'm a human being. I'm not all healed. And I've taken that pain of that story and said, I'm going to make it into something. I'm going to use it to craft I'm going to call it my medicine, my way, my gift, and my path. So it's not just a problem. It's a beautiful part of what I've done with it. A kind of alchemy is good. And people can do that with their physical pains too. It's not just meant to be gone away. It's meant to be brought into the world.
That's it for this episode of The Anxious Achiever. The show is produced and edited by Mary Dew with production support and sound engineering by Nick Krinko. If you like what you heard, head to your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review. It really matters, and we appreciate the time and effort it takes. And if you don't subscribe or follow the show already, now's the time. And let us know what you'd like to hear more of. I get some of my best ideas from my listeners, so find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. You can find my weekly newsletter there as well. A big thanks to LinkedIn and all the listeners out there and our guests in the Anxious Achiever world. Until next time.